I paid for everything, the mortgage, the cars, even my brother's debts, until my father mocked me at my own birthday dinner. He called me their safety net, not their daughter. So I vanished that night, canceled every payment, and watched their comfortable world crumble instantly. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. I shouldn't have been exhausted on my 28th birthday, but exhaustion was the only state of being I had known for the last 5 years. I sat at the head of the table in Le Jardin, the most expensive French bistro in the city. It was the kind of place where the menus didn't have prices listed for the specials, and the waiters spoke in hushed, reverent tones. The lighting was low, amber, and warm, reflecting off the crystal wine glasses that cluttered the table. There were 10 of us. My parents, Marcus and Sarah, my younger brother, Dylan, and a smattering of aunts, uncles, and family friends who had watched me grow up. I took a sip of water, trying to suppress the headache throbbing behind my left eye. My phone buzzed in my purse, a work email from a supplier in Taiwan, but I ignored it. Tonight was supposed to be about me. Is the steak tartare supposed to be this? Raw? Dylan asked loudly, poking at his appetizer with a fork as if it were a dead insect. At 24, Dylan still ate like a toddler and complained like a teenager. He was wearing a designer jacket I had paid for, a watch I had bought him for Christmas, and a smirk that he had developed all on his own. "It's a delicacy, Dylan," my mother, Sarah, whispered, looking around nervously to see if anyone was watching. "Just eat it, honey. It's very expensive." "It's fine, Mom," I said, my voice sounding thinner than I wanted it to. "Order him the burger if he doesn't like it. Put it on the tab." "See, Laura's got it," my father, Marcus, boomed from the other end of the table. He was already 3 scotches deep, his face flushed with that familiar, boisterous redness that usually signaled a long night of storytelling where he was the hero. He signaled the waiter for another round, not even glancing at me to ask if it was okay. I felt a cold knot of anxiety in my stomach. The bill for tonight was already pushing $2,000. I ran the mental spreadsheet in my head. Mortgage transfer is due on the 1st. Dylan's car insurance is due on the 3rd. Electricity, water, the credit card bill for Mom's therapy shopping trip. I made good money as a senior supply chain analyst, very good money, but the hemorrhage of cash required to keep my family afloat was a gaping wound that never healed. "Attention, attention everyone!" Marcus stood up, tapping a spoon against his wine glass. The sharp ding, ding, ding cut through the ambient chatter of the restaurant. The table went quiet. My mother smiled that tight, practiced smile she used whenever Dad started drinking. I sat up straighter, smoothing the napkin over my lap. A birthday toast. A moment of appreciation. Maybe, just maybe, he would acknowledge that I had bought them the house they lived in. Maybe he would say he was proud of my promotion. "To Laura," Marcus announced, raising his glass high. "To Laura," the table chorused. 28 years old, Marcus mused, swaying slightly. "You know, people always ask me, Marcus, why did you retire so early? You're only 55. Don't you worry about the economy? Don't you worry about your pension running out?" He paused for dramatic effect, looking around the table with a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. "And I tell them," he chuckled, a wet, heavy sound. "I tell them, why should I worry? I made an investment 28 years ago, a remarkably boring, reliable investment." He pointed a thick finger at me. I froze, the smile on my face faltered. "See Dylan there?" He gestured to my brother, who was busy texting. "Dylan is the wild card. He's the dream. He's going to be the CEO, the star, the legacy." "But Laura?" Marcus laughed, and it wasn't a kind laugh. It was mocking. "Laura is the insurance policy. You don't love your insurance policy, do you? No, you just pay the premium so it pays out when you need it." A few uncomfortable chuckles rippled through the aunts and uncles. My mother looked down at her plate. "Dad," I whispered, the blood draining from my face. He didn't hear me, or he didn't care. "She's not really the head of the family, folks. She's just the wallet. She's the safety net so the rest of us can fly." He slapped the table, nearly knocking over his water. So, here es to Laura, the best doom and gloom, boring, check-writing safety net a man could ask for. Keeps the lights on while the rest of us live life. Here, here, an uncle shouted, too drunk to read the room. Marcus downed his drin. Kay wiped his mouth and looked at me with a look of utter indifference. Happy birthday, kid. Now tell the waiter to bring the good champagne, the stuff you didn't order yet. The betrayal hit me harder than the physical fatigue. It wasn't just a bad joke. It was the truth, spoken aloud in a moment of drunken clarity. I wasn't their daughter. I wasn't a person with dreams or feelings or a limit to what I could give. I was a utility. I was an appliance. I was a safety net, designed to catch them so they never had to feel the impact of their own choices. I looked at my mother. She was cutting her chicken, refusing to meet my eyes. She knew. She had always known. I looked at Dylan. He was snickering, showing a meme to his girlfriend. I looked at the waiter, who was hovering with the champagne list, looking pityingly at me. The betrayal was worse than the diagnosis of a terminal illness. It was the realization that to the people I loved most, I was already dead. I was just a ghost signing checks. The ringing in my ears was deafening, drowning out the clatter of silverware and the high-pitched laughter of my aunt. I felt detached, as if my spirit had floated up to the ceiling and was looking down at the pathetic woman in the birthday sash. A safety net. The words echoed, bouncing around my skull. Laura, honey, are you okay? My mother finally looked up, her expression a mask of feigned concern. You look pale. Dad was just joking, you know how he is. Don't be so sensitive. Yeah, Laura, Dylan chimed in, his mouth full of bread. Don't ruin the vibe, we're having fun. I'm fine, I said. My voice was calm, eerily calm. It was the voice I used during supply chain crises at work, when ships were delayed and factories were shutting down. It was the voice of damage control. I'm just going to the restroom. Take your time, Marcus waved a hand dismissively, already pouring himself the expensive champagne I hadn't authorized. We're not going anywhere. I stood up, my legs feeling like lead, and walked steadily toward the back of the restaurant. I entered the restroom, locked the stall door, and leaned my forehead against the cool marble tiles. I didn't cry. I wanted to, but the tears wouldn't come. Instead, a cold, hard clarity was settling over me, freezing the sadness into something sharp and dangerous. I pulled out my phone. Bank of America alert. Transaction approved. $1,850 at Le Jardin. I stared at the screen. That was just tonight. Then I opened my banking app and scrolled back. Mortgage payment, $3,200. Dylan's credit card payoff, $1,400. Club fees for Dad, $600. Mom's emergency withdrawal, $800. Month after month, year after year. I had moved back in with them 3 years ago after a bad breakup, thinking I needed the comfort of family. They had welcomed me with open arms, and then slowly, systematically, they had transferred the weight of their entire existence onto my shoulders. Marcus had retired 2 weeks after I moved in, claiming his back hurt. Sarah had stopped worrying about bills because Laura is so good with numbers. Dylan had quit college because Laura can help me fund my startup. I had thought I was being a good daughter. I thought I was contributing. But tonight, the veil had been ripped away. They didn't respect me. They didn't even like me. They laughed at me. To them, I was a sucker, a boring, reliable sucker. I washed my hands, staring at my reflection in the mirror. I saw a woman who looked 10 years older than 28. Dark circles, tension lines around the mouth, expensive makeup trying to hide deep-seated fatigue. I walked back out to the table. They were laughing uproariously at something Dylan had said. Oh, she's back, Marcus said, his eyes glassy. Hey, Laura, cards on the table. Waiter needs a signature. I picked up the black folder. I looked at the total, $2,100 with tip. I signed it. Thanks, sweetie, Mom said, patting my hand absently. Ready to go? I'm tired. Yes, I said softly. I'm ready. The drive home was suffocating. I drove the SUV, which was in my name, but Mom drove it during the day. Marcus was snoring in the passenger seat. Mom and Dylan were whispering in the back about a vacation they wanted to take to Cabo next month. Laura can probably get us points for the flights, Dylan whispered. We'll ask her tomorrow, Mom hushed him. Let her sleep off the birthday moodiness. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. They were planning my future expenditures while I was driving them home. They were carving up my paycheck before I had even earned it. We pulled into the driveway of the large, 4-bedroom colonial house in the suburbs. It was a beautiful house, a status symbol, and they couldn't afford a single brick of it without me. I parked the car and watched them file out. Marcus stumbled a bit, laughing as Dylan caught him. They walked up the path to the front door, the motion sensor lights. Flicking on to welcome them, they looked like a happy family, a successful family. They didn't wait for me. They unlocked the door and went inside, leaving me standing in the dark driveway. I looked up at the house. My room was on the second floor. It was filled with my things, my clothes, my laptop, my documents, but it wasn't my home, it was a cage. I walked to the front door, but I stopped with my hand on the knob. I could hear them inside. The TV was already on. The fridge was opening. They were settling in, comfortable and secure in the safety net I had woven for them. They thought they had broken me tonight. They thought I would go to sleep, cry into my pillow, and wake up tomorrow to pay the internet bill and book their tickets to Cabo. They thought I was trapped by my need for their approval. But they had forgotten one crucial thing. A safety net only works if you keep holding the corners. To understand why I didn't just scream at them right there in the driveway, you have to understand the history. You have to understand Marcus. My father was a man who believed the world owed him a living because he was charming. He had been a mid-level sales manager for 30 years, doing the bare minimum, coasting on charisma and golf outings. He raised me with a very specific doctrine: family is everything. But as I got older, I realized the translation was actually, Laura owes the family everything. I was the smart one, the responsible one. When I was 12, I was balancing my mother's checkbook because the math gave her a headache. When I was 16, I worked 2 jobs to pay for my own car because Marcus said it would build character, while he bought Dylan a brand new dirt bike because Dylan needed an outlet. I excelled in supply chain management because it made sense to me. Input, output, logistics, efficiency. I craved order because my home life was a chaotic swirl of bad financial decisions and emotional blackmail. When I landed my job as a senior analyst at a major tech logistics firm, making 6 figures right out of my MBA program, Marcus cried. I thought he was crying with pride. Now I know he was crying with relief. He saw his retirement plan walking through the door in a pantsuit. 3 years ago, when I moved back in, it was supposed to be temporary. I had just left a fiancé who cheated on me. I was vulnerable. Stay with us, Sarah had said, hugging me. We'll take care of you. But within a month, the narrative shifted. Laura, the property tax bill came in, and your father's pension check is late. Can you cover it just this once? Laura, Dylan needs a suit for an interview. You know how important appearances are. Laura, the AC unit died. We can't live like this, it's inhumane. Just this once turned into every time, and every time turned into an expectation. Marcus was the architect of this dynamic. He was a master manipulator masked as a jovial patriarch. He spent his days at the country club, a membership I paid for, bragging about his successful children. But in reality, he was draining me dry. He wasn't just lazy, he was malicious about it. I remembered a conversation from 2 months ago. I had come home late, exhausted after a 12-hour shift. I found Marcus and Dylan in the living room, watching a game on the new 85-inch TV I had bought for Christmas. Hey, I had said, dropping my bag. Did anyone make dinner? Marcus didn't even look away from the screen. Your mom was tired. She went to bed. There's some cold pizza in the box, but Dylan might have finished it. I'm hungry, I said, frustration bubbling up. I bought the groceries. I paid for the pizza. Marcus turned then, his eyes narrowing. Don't start with the bean counting, Laura. It's unbecoming. You work, we keep the home. That's the deal. You want to charge your brother for a slice of pizza. Is that the kind of sister you are? He knew exactly how to twist the knife. He knew I feared being seen as selfish. He knew I desperately wanted to be good. And then there was Dylan, the golden child. Dylan was 24 and had never held a job for longer than 3 months. He called himself an entrepreneur. Currently, his business was reselling sneakers he bought with my credit card. He kept the profit, I paid the card. It's an investment, Laura, he would say. You just don't understand the market. Tonight, at the dinner, looking at Marcus's red, arrogant face, I finally saw the antagonist clearly. He wasn't a loving father struggling to make ends meet. He was a parasite. A parasite who had convinced the host that being eaten alive was a privilege. He had spent my entire life grooming me to be his servant. He had undermined my confidence, sabotaged my relationships by demanding my time, and guilt-tripped me into financial submission. I stood in the driveway, the cold night air biting at my exposed arms. The house lights were blazing. They were inside, warm and fed, drinking my champagne, watching my TV, living in my house. They thought I was the safety net. I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone again. I opened the Notes app where I kept a list of all the account numbers, passwords, and billing cycles. I had organized their lives for efficiency. I stared at the list. It wasn't a list of responsibilities anymore. It was a weapon. I turned away from the front door. I walked quietly around the side of the house to the back patio. The sliding glass door to the den was always unlocked because Dylan was too lazy to secure it. I wasn't going to make a scene. I wasn't going to scream and cry and give Marcus the satisfaction of calling me hysterical or emotional. I was a supply chain analyst. I solved problems by cutting inefficiencies, and this entire household was the biggest inefficiency in my life. I slipped inside the dark house. I could hear the TV in the living room. I crept up the back stairs, my heart pounding in my throat, not with fear, but with adrenaline. I had a plan, and unlike Dylan's businesses, this one was actually going to work. I moved through the upstairs hallway like a shadow. My feet, trained by years of trying not to wake a hungover father or a sleeping baby brother, made no sound on the plush carpet I had paid to have installed last year. Inside my bedroom, I didn't turn on the light. The ambient glow from the street lamps outside filtered through the blinds, casting long, jail bar shadows across the floor. I didn't look at the room with nostalgia. I looked at it with the cold, calculating eyes of a logistics manager assessing a failed warehouse. Objective: extraction. Timeframe: immediate. I pulled my large travel duffel from the back of the closet. I didn't pack clothes first. Clothes were replaceable. Clothes were non-essential inventory. I went straight for the high-value assets. I opened the small, fireproof safe in the bottom drawer of my desk. My passport, my birth certificate, my social security card, the title to the SUV, the deed to the house, which was technically in my name, with my parents listed only as tenants at will. A legal safeguard my lawyer friend had insisted on when I bought the place, though I had never had the heart to tell Marcus the specifics. He thought his name was on the deed. He was wrong. I swept the documents into the bag. Next came my laptop, my external hard drives, and the folder of tax returns. Downstairs, I heard the distinctive pop of another champagne cork. "To Cabo," Dylan shouted. "To Cabo," Marcus roared. They were toasting to a vacation I was supposed to fund, while I was upstairs dismantling their entire reality. The irony was so thick I could taste it, bitter and metallic. I packed enough clothes for a week. Suits for work, comfortable shoes, toiletries. I stripped the jewelry box of the pieces I had bought myself, the pearl earrings, the gold watch. I left the cheap costume jewelry my mother had given me for Christmas 2 years ago. I zipped the bag. It was heavy, but I hoisted it onto my shoulder with a grim sense of satisfaction. It was the only weight I would be carrying from now on. The 1,000-pound burden of their expectations was staying right here in this room. I paused at the door. I looked at the bed where I had spent sleepless nights worrying about their credit scores. I looked at the desk where I had balanced their budgets. "Goodbye," I whispered. I didn't use the front door. I went out the way I came, down the back stairs and through the sliding door in the den. The cool night air hit me, filling my lungs with oxygen that felt cleaner, sharper. I walked to the SUV. I threw the bag in the passenger seat. I climbed in, keyed the ignition, and backed out of the driveway. I didn't turn on the headlights until I was down the street, a ghost slipping away into the night. I drove straight to the Marriott downtown. I had enough points for a 2-week stay, points I had been saving for a vacation I never took because the family might need me. I checked in, went up to the room, and sat at the generic wooden desk. I didn't sleep. I opened my laptop. It was 11:45 p.m. I logged into the bank portal. Step 1, sever the flow. I canceled the automatic transfer scheduled for the first of the month, the mortgage payment. I canceled the standing order for the utility bills, electricity, gas, water, internet, cable. I logged into the credit card accounts. I was the primary account holder, they were authorized users. Select user Marcus. Action freeze card, reason lost stolen. Select user Sarah. Action freeze card, reason lost stolen. Select user Dylan. Action freeze card, reason lost stolen. Click, click, click. I watched the active status turn to suspended in red letters. It was visually satisfying, like watching a row of red lights stop a train that was heading off a cliff. Then I went deeper. I initiated a credit freeze on my own social security number, just in case Marcus knew it and tried to open anything in my name, a trick he had pulled on my mother years ago. I opened a new checking account at a completely different bank, one they didn't know existed. I transferred my entire savings balance, every cent of the emergency fund, the vacation fund, the Dylan's potential bail money fund into the new account. By 2:00 a.m., I was done. I had digitally erased myself from their financial ecosystem. I had built a firewall they couldn't breach. I sat back in the hotel chair, the silence of the room wrapping around me. For the first time in 3 years, I wasn't wondering how I would make ends meet. I was wondering how long it would take for them to notice the safety net was gone. I didn't have to wait long. The first text came at 7:15 a.m. It was from my mother. "Mom, honey, are you already at work? There's no coffee, we're out of pods." I stared at the screen, sipping the fresh, hot coffee I had brewed in my hotel room. I didn't reply. 7:45 a.m. "Mom, Laura, Dad is asking where you are. He wants breakfast." 8:30 a.m. "Dylan, yo, did you change the Netflix password? It's not logging in." I had changed every password. Netflix, Hulu, Spotify, Amazon Prime. If they wanted entertainment, they could talk to each other. I went to work. I sat in my office, surrounded by the hum of logistics and order, feeling a strange sense of calm. I was in a meeting regarding a shipment of microchips from Singapore when my phone started buzzing incessantly on the table. Caller ID, Dad. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again immediately. Caller ID, Dad. I declined it. Then a text from Marcus. "Dad, pick up the phone. There is a problem with the card." I excused myself from the meeting, stepping out into the hallway. I walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. I took a deep breath. I called him back. "Finally," Marcus shouted before I could even say hello. "What the hell is going on, Laura? I'm at the gas station. The card was declined. The guy at the counter looked at me like I'm a bum. Embarrassing. Fix it right now." His voice was loud, demanding, completely devoid of the mockery from the night before. He sounded like a manager yelling at an incompetent employee. "Hello, Marcus," I said. My voice was steady, cool. Don't hello Marcus me. I said fix the card. Transfer the money. I have half a tank of gas and a line of cars behind me. No, I said. There was a silence on the line, a confused, stunned silence. What did you say? I said no, I'm not fixing the card, I froze it. It won't work again. Is this a joke? He let out a harsh, incredulous laugh. Is this because of the toast last night? Oh, grow up, Laura, you're being dramatic. You're punishing us because you can't take a joke. It wasn't a joke, Dad. You were right. You spoke the truth, I said, watching the traffic crawl far below me. You called me a safety net. You said I wasn't really the head of the family, just the wallet. Well, I realized you were correct. I'm just an insurance policy. And you know what happens when you stop paying the premium on your insurance? What are you talking about? He was shouting now. I am your father, you owe me respect. The policy is canceled, I said. I moved out last night. I took my things. I canceled the cards. I canceled the utilities. I canceled the mortgage transfer. You what? His voice dropped an octave. The reality was starting to seep in. You can't do that, that's my house. Actually, I corrected him, it's my house. The deed is in my name, you're a tenant, a non-paying tenant, but don't worry, I won't evict you immediately. You can stay there as long as you can pay the bills. The mortgage is $3,200 a month. The electricity runs about $400. Water is $100. Good luck. You ungrateful little bitch, he screamed. The mask completely fell away. After everything we did for you, we took you in when you were broken, we gave you a home. I bought the home, I snapped back, my voice rising for the first time. I paid for the home, I paid for the food in your stomach and the scotch in your liver, but that's over. The safety net has been removed. You're in free fall, Marcus. I suggest you learn to fly. I hung up. My hand was shaking slightly, not from fear, but from the adrenaline of finally cutting the cord. I blocked his number. Then I blocked Mom's number, then Dylan's. I went back into the meeting, sat down, and smiled at my boss. Sorry about that, I said. Just handling a logistical issue with a non-compliant vendor. It's been resolved. But of course, it wasn't fully resolved. Chaos, when contained for too long, explodes. By the time I left work that evening, I had 27 missed calls from unknown numbers. Voicemails from my Aunt Linda, Laura, your mother is hysterical. What have you done? From my cousin, Dylan says you stole their money. And from my mother herself, leaving a weep. Message on my work line. Laura, please, Dad didn't mean it. The power company sent a notification that a disconnect order was placed. Please, honey, we don't know the passwords. We don't know how to log in. Just come home and we can talk. They didn't want me. They wanted the passwords. They wanted the logistics manager back on the floor because the factory was burning down. I deleted the voicemails. I went to the hotel gym and ran 5 miles. I ordered room service, a steak medium rare just for me. I thought the silence would feel lonely. Instead, it felt like victory. 3 days passed. The siege of suburbia, as I called it in my head, was intensifying. I knew exactly what was happening in the house because I had the digital footprint of their panic. I received alerts from the security system, which I still monitored. Front door opened 10:45 a.m. Front door opened 11:00 a.m. Garage door opened 1:00 p.m. They were coming and going, likely scrambling. On Wednesday, I received an email from Dylan. He had bypassed the block by making a new Gmail account, dylanKingbiz@gmail.com. Subject, you need to stop this body. Laura, this isn't funny. The internet is off. I can't trade. I have inventory sitting here and I can't ship it because I can't print labels. Dad is losing his mind. He's talking to a lawyer. You better fix this or he's going to sue you for elder abuse and theft. He says you stole his equity. Mom is crying all day. Are you happy? You're ruining everything over a stupid speech. I didn't reply to the emotional bait. I replied with data. I attached a PDF to my response. It was a single document, outstanding debt and asset ownership summary. It listed The mortgage deed owner, Laura's. The car title owner, Laura's. A spreadsheet of loans to family, totaling $145,000 over 3 years. A copy of the lease agreement they had signed when I bought the house. A standard form my lawyer made them sign for tax purposes, which they hadn't read, which clearly stated they were tenants responsible for utilities if the owner vacated. My reply, Dylan, there is no equity. I bought the house. The down payment was mine. The monthly payments were mine. Dad has zero equity. As for the theft, I have attached the receipts for every item in that house. If you want to sue, go ahead. I have a forensic accountant ready to audit where Marcus's pension actually went gambling debts, I assume. I suggest you get a job. Starbucks is hiring. The threat of the lawyer was a bluff, and we both knew it. Lawyers cost money. Marcus didn't have money. He had my money, and the tap was dry. That afternoon, the escalation moved from digital to physical. I was walking to my car in the parking garage of my office building. The structure was secure, requiring a badge to enter, but the visitor lot was open. As I exited the elevator, I saw them. The SUV, my SUV, was double parked near the exit. Marcus was leaning against it, arms crossed, wearing a wrinkled polo shirt. Sarah was sitting in the passenger seat, looking pale. Dylan was pacing. They had camped out. They knew where I worked, and they had decided to ambush me. My first instinct was to turn around and run back to the elevators. But I stopped. I was done running. I was the CEO of my life now. I walked toward them, my heels clicking on the concrete, echoing in the cavernous garage. There she is, Marcus shouted, pushing off the car. He looked rough, unshaven, eyes bloodshot. The withdrawal from his comfortable lifestyle was hitting him hard. You think you can just hide? I'm not hiding, Marcus, I said, stopping 10 feet away. I'm working, something you haven't done in 15 years. Give me the keys, he demanded, holding out his hand. And the credit card. Now, we have a dinner with the Andersons tonight, and I am not showing up in a taxi. The Andersons? I laughed, a genuine, incredulous laugh. You're worried about a dinner party? Dad, the electricity is scheduled to be cut off tomorrow at noon. I received the final notice. Did you pay it? That's your job, he screamed, his voice echoing. You pay the bills, we raised you, we sacrificed for you. You sacrificed nothing? I stepped forward, my anger finally flaring hot and bright. You used me. You retired at 55 because you decided I was your 401k. You drained my savings. You mocked me to my face while eating a steak I paid for. That's not sacrifice, that's parasitism. Laura, please, my mother opened the car door, stepping out shakily. She looked older, frailer. Just come home, we can talk about a budget, we can. We can cut back on the cable packages, just don't leave us like this. It's not about the cable packages, Mom, I said, my voice softening slightly for her, though the pity was mixed with disgust. It's about respect. You sat there and let him call me a wallet. You laughed. I didn't laugh, she sobbed. You didn't defend me. That's the same thing. Dylan Peeped up, trying to look tough. Look, Laura, you made your point. You're the big boss, congrats, but you can't actually kick us out. It's squatters' rights or something. We're not leaving. I looked at Dylan, then at the SUV. I know you're not leaving the house yet, I said calmly, but you are leaving the car. What? Marcus blinked. This car, I pointed to the SUV. It's leased in my name. I just reported it as unauthorized use to the leasing company, and I'm taking it back right now. You can't leave us here, Marcus sputtered. How will we get home? Take an Uber, I said. Oh wait, you need a working credit card for that. I guess you can walk. It's only 8 miles. Good exercise. I pulled my spare key fob from my purse. I pressed the panic button. The car alarm started blaring, a rhythmic, deafening honking that filled the garage. Honk, honk, honk. People were starting to look. A security guard was walking over. Get out of the way, I said, walking to the driver's side. I'm not moving. Marcus stood in front of the door. Is there a problem here, Ms. Vance? The security guard, a large man named Jerome who I chatted with every morning, stepped up. He looked at Marcus, then at me. "Yes, Jerome," I said, my voice crisp. "These people are harassing me, and this gentleman is refusing to step away from my vehicle." Jerome turned to Marcus. "Sir, step away from the car, now." Marcus looked at Jerome, then at me. He saw the badge, the uniform, and the steel in my eyes. He saw the reality of the world without his safety net protecting him from consequences. He stepped back. He looked defeated, small, and pathetic. "You're dead to me," Marcus hissed as I opened the door. "You hear me? You have no family." "I didn't have a family before," I said, sliding into the leather seat. "I just had dependents." I slammed the door, locked it, and drove away, leaving them standing in the exhaust fumes of the life they used to own. But the war wasn't over. That was just a skirmish. The final battle was coming, and I knew exactly where it would happen. The final showdown didn't happen in a courtroom or a boardroom. It happened, fittingly, at a barbecue. 2 weeks after the incident in the parking garage, I received a text from my Aunt Linda. Linda was Marcus's older sister, the matriarch of the extended family, and a woman who wielded guilt like a samurai sword. "Aunt Linda, we are having a family intervention at my house this Sunday at 2 p.m. You need to be there. Your father is destroyed. We need to clear up this misunderstanding before it goes to the lawyers." Intervention. The word hung in the air. They were going to gang up on me. They were going to sit me down in a circle, tell me I was a terrible daughter, and bully me into turning the electricity back on and handing over the deed. I could have ignored it. I could have stayed in my hotel room, eating room service and watching the foreclosure notices pile up in my blocked email folder. But a supply chain analyst knows that you cannot close a file until all discrepancies are resolved. If I didn't face them, the narrative would always be Marcus's version. The story of the ungrateful daughter who stole her parents' home. I needed to correct the record. I arrived at Aunt Linda's house at 2:05 p.m. I carried a heavy black leather portfolio case, the kind I used for board presentations. Walking into the backyard, the atmosphere was suffocatingly tense. There were about 15 people there: Aunt Linda, Uncle Robert, various cousins, and of course, the victims. Marcus was sitting in a lawn chair, holding a beer, looking like a martyr. He had let his beard grow out a bit, a calculated move to look more destitute. Sarah was sitting next to him, clutching a tissue, looking pale and fragile. Dylan was by the grill, aggressively flipping burgers, refusing to look at me. The conversation died instantly when the gate latched behind me. 15 pairs of eyes locked onto me. Some were angry, some curious, some just uncomfortable. "You came," Aunt Linda said, marching over. She was wearing a floral apron that clashed with her scowl. "Brave of you." "I have nothing to hide, Linda," I said, my voice projecting clearly across the silent yard. "You said there was a misunderstanding. I'm here to clarify it." "The misunderstanding," Uncle Robert boomed, standing up from the picnic table, "is that you seem to think it's acceptable to evict your own parents from their home, to cut off their utilities, to leave them in the dark. It's cruel, Laura. It's unnatural." "It's abuse," Marcus shouted from his chair, seizing the momentum. He stood up, pointing a shaking finger at me. "She manipulated the paperwork. I trusted her with my finances because my eyes aren't what they used to be, and she tricked me into signing the deed over to her. She stole my house." A gasp went through the cousins. This was the lie he had been selling, that I had swindled him. "She's been siphoning my pension for years," Marcus continued, gaining steam. "Telling me she was investing it, and now she runs off with the money and kicks us out. I should call the police." "Then call them," I said calmly. I walked to the main picnic table, pushing aside a bowl of potato salad. I laid the black portfolio down and unzipped it. The sound of the zipper was the only noise in the yard. "You say I stole the house?" I asked, looking at Uncle Robert. "Marcus says he paid the down payment 20 years ago, and you refinanced it under your name to help him," Robert said, crossing his arms. Marcus is lying, I said. I pulled out a thick stack of documents, bound with a clip. Exhibit A, I announced, my voice steady, channeling every boardroom presentation I had ever given. The closing disclosure from 3 years ago. You'll see the down payment of $80,000. It came from a wire transfer, from my personal savings account. Here is the bank statement matching the wire. I held it up. I passed it to Uncle Robert. He took it, frowning, and adjusted his glasses. Exhibit B, I continued, pulling out another stack. The mortgage statements for the last 36 months. Every single payment made from a Wells Fargo account ending in 4590. That is my account, my name only. But the pension, Aunt Linda stammered, looking at Marcus, who was starting to sweat. He gives you his pension to pay the bills. I laughed. It was a cold, sharp sound. Exhibit C. I pulled out a colorful spreadsheet, color-coded for clarity. Marcus's pension is $1,800 a month, I explained. Here are the bank records for his joint account with Mom. You can see the deposit on the first of each month. I pointed to the lines in red. And here you can see the withdrawals. $500 at Riverside Casino, $400 at Lucky SOTB, $300 at the liquor store, every single month, for 3 years. Not 1 cent of his money went to the mortgage. Not 1 cent went to the utilities. He gambled and drank his contribution away while I worked 60-hour weeks to cover his deficit. I handed the spreadsheet to Sarah. My mother took the paper. Her hands were trembling. She looked at the red lines, the dates, the locations. Marcus, she whispered, you said the pension was going into a bond for Dylan. It's fake, Marcus shouted, his face turning a dangerous shade of purple. She forged it. It's a spreadsheet. Anyone can make a spreadsheet. I also brought the official bank statements, Mom, I said gently, placing the original bank letters in front of her. Certified by the bank manager. Sarah stared at the papers. The silence in the backyard was heavy, pressing down on us like a physical weight. The narrative was crumbling. The martyr was being revealed as the monster. And finally, I said, turning to Dylan, the safety net. I pulled out a final document. It was a credit card statement, a very long one. Dylan tells everyone he is an entrepreneur, I said, looking at the cousins who had been admiring Dylan's shoes. Here is the activity on the card I gave him for emergencies. $4,000 at Supreme, $2,000 at the Apple Store, $800 at a nightclub called Velvet. I paid this off every month. I was the investor. I was the safety net. And when I stopped paying, the business collapsed. I looked around the circle. Uncle Robert was reading the mortgage papers, his face pale. Aunt Linda was looking at her brother with horror. I didn't steal the house, I said, closing the portfolio. I bought it. I maintained it. And I allowed 2 able-bodied adults and 1 24-year-old man to live there rent-free, bill-free, and consequence-free. And in return, on my birthday, my father toasted to the fact that I was nothing more than a wallet to him. I looked directly at Marcus. He was deflation personified. He slumped in his chair, the beer bottle dangling from his finger. He couldn't meet my eyes. He couldn't meet anyone's eyes. The utilities are off because I stopped paying for a house I don't live in, I said. The foreclosure process starts in 30 days if the mortgage isn't paid. If you want to save the house, Marcus, I suggest you take that pension and start paying. But we both know you can't. Sarah, Marcus croaked, reaching for my mother's hand. Sarah, listen to me, she's twisting it. My mother stood up. It was a slow, painful movement, as if she was aging 10 years in 10 seconds. She looked at the gambling records in her hand. Then she looked at the husband she had defended, coddled, and feared for 30 years. You told me we were safe, she said, her voice cracking. You told me you handled the retirement. You told me Laura was just helping with the extras. I did, You called her a safety net, Sarah said, tears spilling over her cheeks. You humiliated her, and you lied to me. She dropped the papers on the grass. They scattered like dead leaves. I'm not going back to that house with you, Marcus, she said quietly. I can't, there's no electricity, and there's no trust. She turned to me. Her eyes were filled with a mixture of shame and desperation. Laura, I didn't know, I swear, I didn't know about the gambling. I know, Mom, I said, and I did. She was an enabler, yes, but she was also a victim of his gaslighting. But you knew I was paying. You knew I was drowning, and you looked away because it was easier. She flinched, I know. I'm leaving, I said to the group. Uncle Robert, Aunt Linda, if you want to help them, feel free to write a check, but my checkbook is closed. I turned and walked out of the backyard. Behind me, I heard Marcus start to shout, a desperate, angry sound that was quickly drowned out by the rising voices of his siblings demanding answers. I didn't look back. I walked to my car, got in, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel the crushing weight of obligation. I felt light. The fallout was swift and absolute. Without my income, the house of cards didn't just fall, it disintegrated. Marcus tried to fight. He went to a legal aid clinic, trying to claim squatters' rights or elder abuse. But when the lawyer saw the deed and the paper trail of my financial support, he told Marcus he didn't have a leg to stand on. I put the house on the market 3 weeks later. It sold within days. A nice family with 3 kids and a dog who had no idea of the drama that had soaked into the drywall. I used the proceeds to pay off the remaining mortgage and the equity loan Marcus had secretly taken out years ago, which I discovered during the closing process. After all the debts were settled, there was about $40,000 left. I didn't keep it, I split it. I sent $20,000 to a trust for my mother, controlled by Aunt Linda so Marcus couldn't touch it. I sent $20,000 to Marcus with a note, "Here is your severance package. Good luck." Marcus moved into a small, 1-bedroom apartment in a rundown part of the city. From what Aunt Linda tells me, he spends his days complaining to anyone who will listen about his ungrateful daughter who ruined his life. He is bitter, alone, and for the first time, forced to live within his means. Dylan had the rudest awakening of all. With no credit cards, no free rent, and no investor, he had to get a job. He works at a distribution center now, ironically, in a warehouse that my company manages. I see his name on the employee manifest sometimes. Dylan Vance, level 1 picker. He's on his feet for 10 hours a day. I haven't spoken to him, but I hope the hard work is finally building that character Marcus always talked about. And Mom. Sarah moved in with her sister, Linda. It took time, but she got a job as a receptionist at a dental office. It's not a glamorous life, and she misses her status as the lady of the manor, but she seems lighter. We meet for coffee once a month. It's awkward. There is a lot of hurt that will never fully heal. She apologizes often, but trust is like a mirror. Once broken, you can glue it back together, but you can still see the cracks in the reflection. As for me, I bought a condo in the city. It's modern, sleek, and terrifyingly quiet. The first night in my new place, I sat on my balcony overlooking the skyline. I had a glass of wine in my hand. My phone was on the table, silent. No payment notifications, no panic texts, no demands. I used to think that love was about how much you could endure for someone. I thought that being a good daughter meant setting yourself on fire to keep your family warm. I took a sip of wine, watching the city lights twinkle below. I was wrong. Love is not a transaction, and family isn't a suicide pact. I had lost my parents, my brother, and the home I grew up in. By all accounts, I had lost everything. But as I sat there, breathing in the cool night air, I realized the truth. I hadn't lost my safety net. I had realized that I was the safety net. And now that I wasn't catching them, I was finally free to fly.